Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing very, very, very good today. And we are going to take a look at a couple emails from Frank, two of those, and then one email from Alexander in this episode. Let's get right to it. Frank, in fact, was in contact with me about a month ago, and he writes back 1 day ago the following. I apologize if you have already addressed this question in one or several of your videos. The advice you gave me last June to curb worrying about sleep has helped immensely. I've since discontinued bedtime rituals, increased my daytime activity level, and I no longer allow insomnia to keep me from exercising and staying active throughout the day, whether or not I slept well. I'm just going to interject right there that this is super, super encouraging. I'm really, really glad to hear this. And as I often say, like any little step in the right direction when it comes to insomnia is like something to really focus on, make that a stepping stone towards like getting even better. So well done. Okay, let's go on. My problem is that hyperarousal continues to disrupt my sleep in a major way. Currently, I allow myself a 6-hour sleep window. I fall asleep easily, but tend to wake up again within 10 to 30 minutes. I remain calm, and I manage to go back to sleep by focusing on my breath and by allowing my thoughts to slide by. With all that, I still have 3 to 4 nights a week when I'm too wired to fall asleep and only get 3 to 4 hours of fragmented sleep. I struggle to stay awake till 12 a.m., my bedtime, but once I am in bed, hyperarousal kicks in and it wakes me up. I need to stand on my feet from 11 p.m. onward and read. I often fall asleep while standing up. I dread having to limit my sleep window further and having to struggle to stay awake for even longer. I do not allow these bad nights to control my days anymore, but I would like to know where to go from here. I understand that you should not allow a sleep window of fewer than 5 hours. Should I continue to trim my sleep window or should I follow my present plan? It does allow me 4 nights of good sleep every week. I hope you can help. Thank you. Again, I always try to focus on positive things, like 4 nights of good sleep every week. That's a great start. And I think I have something, as I was reading this, I was like, I know exactly what could be a great path forward here. I think there was a second email from Frank with a little bit more context. Let's read that, and then I'll go back to what I think could be a really great path forward. So I just said to Frank that I would make this reply, and then he said, just to clarify, as your latest video underlines, I should not get stuck on the number of hours that you sleep, but instead focus on how I feel in the morning, how rested and refreshed I am. I used hours as a proxy as to how restorative my sleep was on a given night. Less than 4 hours, I lack the motivation to be physically active, and I struggle to focus while reading or writing. My mood suffers as a result. If I'm sleeping 5 hours, I still need to push myself, but I can carry out either of these tasks with much less effort and be more productive. My mood is much improved. I also recall how well I felt when, until January of this year, I slept 7 to 8 hours continuously. Whereas a number alone does not say much, they still correlate with sleep quality in my experience. The degree to which sleep is fragmented, as you would expect, also helps determine how restful my sleep is. I do worry when my night sleep falls below 4 hours and I wake up for more than a couple of minutes on 2 or more occasions during that same period. I can see a tremendous difference on all of these indicators when I manage to get at least 4 hours of unbroken sleep with 1 additional hour of fragmented sleep on top. If this helps tailor your answer, thank you. I think there are actually what my answer into like what as to what is the best way forward. Probably not changed by this last part, but it is. I think it was helpful that you added this. Let me put it this way: there's no question that, of course, like if we sleep a nice solid 7 hours, we feel much better than when we sleep a fragmented, 3.7 hours. And now, and I think you totally get everything here. I just for clarity and for everybody else that's tuning in, what you like when you focus on numbers, then it leads to kind of like clock watching, and you're checking like exactly how much time you have to sleep and how much time you got, and etc. And that leads to kind of more preoccupation and anxiety. So that's why, generally speaking, it's much better to focus on how you feel, and you will find that, although yes, there is definitely this correlation. So when people do diaries, often they find that, oh, this night I slept really poorly, but I was okay the following day, or like I felt really terrible this day, and I slept actually pretty good the night before. So there's not a perfect correlation. And the important thing there is that when people realize that, sometimes I can feel okay even if I have a pretty bad night, that makes you fear those bad nights a little less, and that can be a huge step. I've heard many people say that was like the main thing that made them finally like get past their insomnia. But anyway, going back to what I thought was really the most important thing here was the following, that restricting time in bed, what people call sleep restriction, or I prefer call bedtime restriction, is really helpful. Just the basic method is just like, you get up early, you stay awake and active during the day, you build your sleep drive, you build a need for sleep, and then your body has that sleep drive to overcome any anxiety at night and help you sleep through. That's kind of the mechanism behind it. But a problem with bedtime restriction or sleep restriction is that when you know that you only have 6 hours to sleep, that in itself can be triggering. And in your case, Frank, I can visualize how like it's 11 p.m. and you're like, I gotta stay up till 12, and you're like so sleepy and tired, and then when 12 hits, then you're hyper aroused. And what's happening is that at 11, you're actually not allowed to sleep. You have to stay awake, and paradoxically, that puts you like having absolutely no pressure to sleep. Actually, being pressured to stay awake makes you want to sleep. And then when it's 12, then you're pressured to sleep, and then you go into hyperdrive. So Michael Schwartz, who is a respiratory therapist but also a sleep educator, and I think someone who has so much experience, and I wish I had more time, I would invite him again to talk more, but he taught me this thing that I think really, really could be helpful. He calls it the ditch the clock method. And for you, Frank, it would work like this. So instead of having this kind of stricter sleep window from midnight to 6, what you would do would be to, let's say, 10:45 or 11 or something like that, you say, okay, this is the last time I check what time it is. And after that, your only other fixed time point is like an alarm that goes off at 6 a.m. Now, between, let's say, 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., you do not look at any clocks. But more importantly, you completely rely on how you feel to determine if you're going to go to sleep or not. So you stop watching the time at 11, let's say, and if you feel sleepy right then and there, then you go to bed. And if you fall asleep, great. If you don't fall asleep and you're frustrated, then you can do this kind of mental, like, guided imagery thing where you stay in bed and you imagine, like kind of like you have been doing, like you focus on your breathing, you try to go to a nice place in your mind, and if that's working, you stay in bed. You're probably gonna fall asleep. If it's not working, then you get out of bed, do something else, and then when you start feeling sleepy again, you go back to bed, but you don't check the time. So this actually gives you a bigger window, and you're checking the clock less, and I think it could be super, super helpful. So I am going to conclude there, and Frank, if you decide to try this, then stay in touch, let me know how things go, and any other questions that pop up, please stay in touch. Okay, now another email that came much more recently, but it was actually 11 hours ago. It's from Alexander, and we are gonna jump right in here. So hi Daniel, greetings from Russia. I was very happy to find your channel since there's almost nothing one can read about CBTI in Russian, and yet its principles and rules seem so simple that it's a shame so people around the world are aware of them. Oh my gosh, like that is exactly how I feel 98% of my waking hours. It's so like, CBTI is not that complicated. It is pretty straightforward. It is very logical. It's commonsensical. It would help, 87% of everybody with insomnia if they just knew about it. And I believe that 100% would be better if they had like real good CBTI available to them. But anyway, hopefully this will change as internet makes information more available and things like that. And by the way, it's always I'm super happy whoever emails me, but it's fun when you get an email from far away from Russia, so that's cool. Anyway, let's keep going here. I got suggested a strategy to treat my case for insomnia from a therapist in Russia after 2 sessions. But I got a bit confused about it, so I would be very grateful if you'll tell me what your opinion is about this. I tried to go to bed around the same time, around 11:30 to 11:40, for a couple of months. I woke up 1 to 3 times per night, and each time not sure what time it is, since I feel it's like morning already and maybe it's time to get up. After I watch your videos now, it seems obvious that I should set an alarm clock to the same time every day and then go to bed 1 hour later each night, and I'll be constantly waking up on the same time in the morning. That's what I want to do. Before I was suggested the following: I should get up after the very first time I wake up during the night, even if it's been 2 to 3 hours in bed, and not go to bed until the next night. I should continue getting up after the first awakening until I get consistent sleep, at least not to give up for 3 to 5 days. I never read about such an approach. The idea is to break my habit to wake up and go to the toilet at night and reduce this amount to 0, but fairly. I don't believe my bladder will agree with it, so I'm afraid that this strategy is too rough, and I better just concentrate on waking up at the same time and do Kegels to straighten up the bladder. I'm not sure what that is, but it doesn't actually matter at all. Really interesting. I've never heard about this approach that somebody suggested, which would be then, let's say you go to bed at midnight and then you wake up at 3 a.m. and then you just get up and stay up until the next night. I don't think that is a good strategy. And I say that because when you don't wake up at the same time, it's hard to get any type of routine. And I'm thinking, like, as I'm talking here, I'm thinking, what would happen? Let's just play this out. So let's say somebody went to bed at 12, they woke up at 3 a.m., then they would be awake the entire following day. And then they would probably really, really struggle until midnight. But let's say they made it. Then they would sleep probably longer the following night. They would probably sleep till, let's say, 4 or 5, and then get up and then be awake the whole next day, then be in bed by 12 again. But then what happens is, in my mind and my thinking, is that you may have this off night where you wake up at 3 again, and then you have to wake up. And I think there's part of me that says that maybe this could work. I've never heard of it, but anything that makes you kind of stay awake for a long time produces a strong need to sleep and helps with sleep. But it feels to me like the strategy where you have like a fixed late bedtime and then wake up whenever you wake. I feel like that would lead to a kind of shifting scenario where sometimes you'd sleep more, sometimes less, and I feel like it would be hard to get things structured. So I think definitely I definitely think that the traditional approach that you were thinking of doing is better, to have a fixed wake up time and then start off by going to bed, let's say 6 hours before that, and then when you feel sleepy, you can go to bed a little earlier, like traditional CBT. I think that, but it's super interesting. It's super interesting thought. And by the way, let me know where you heard that. If there's any studies on that approach, I would be super interested in reading that. And then Alexander had actually created like a diet, like a Google sheet that automatically calculates like time in bed, total sleep time, sleep efficiency, and you can just paste this. And he said, feel free to copy and use it. So I'm going to share that. I think when I clicked the link to it, it actually had Alexander's like personal information in it. So I'm not sure how to share that so it becomes blank, but I'll ask Alexander about that. And I think it seems really helpful. And then I think the last thing Alexander wrote here was like, feel free to copy it and use it. Yet I think it's designed mostly for such control freaks like I am, haha. and it's so true. Like that, being a control freak is really something that a lot of people with insomnia have in common. And like you try to you start having some trouble sleeping, then you try to control it. You're not successful. Then you try even harder to control it, and then it becomes worse, etc., etc. But as I made a recent video on like having like a type A personality, like, you know, being a little bit of a control freak. And it can work two ways, actually. Like, it can be the reason you have insomnia, but it can also work really well when you start doing CBTI, because it's a lot of things are cut and dry. Like, you have to get up at this time. You cannot, you know, sleep during the day. You cannot go to bed before. And if you're a control freak, you can actually be very, you know, disciplined about these things. And so being a control freak can be the way past insomnia as well. So I'll end it there. And when I have the this sheet from Alexander, or figure out how to maybe share that, I will do that. And I will be back with, I have an email from David that I think he has some questions about light therapy, as well as like, you know, melatonin. And I think he has, the questions he has in the email are things that I feel like a lot of people ask about. So I think that's going to be a really good episode that I'm going to do a video answer to either tonight or maybe tomorrow. But until I have you back, I hope you're doing really good. And comments always super helpful, and emails are also very, very helpful. So thank you so much for those. Until I have you back here next time, you stay out of trouble. Okay, bye-bye.